this video is going to focus on means and standard deviations, specifically a common question that's often asked about this topic. So here's one sample question that I've got written down. So what does the mean and standard deviation show, and justify your answers? And obviously it would be in relation to a scenario just like this one. So let's assume there's 20, thanks for that, 20 words that participants have to recall. And we've got recall with music and recall with no music. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is the mean. So what the mean tells us, if you look at those two figures, is that recall was better with music. The justification for that is because the mean score was greater in the music condition in comparison to the no music condition. And that really is it for that one. For standard deviation, which is a little bit more trickier than that, please remember this is more about variation, so it's not about which group does better. I'm just going to give you some more advice. So larger standard deviation means more variation in the data set. So that means smaller standard deviations, I'm just going to write that for brief, means less variation in the data set. Okay, so that's the definition really, and I mean this is all regards to the mean score. Okay, so we're saying there's a lot of variation from the mean, or there's not much variation. Now specifically, let's look at the results. So we can see it's 5.8 for the with music condition and 2.1 for the without music condition. So again, looking at that information, it's quite clear that the larger standard deviation is for music, so that means more variation in the music score condition. This means that some people scored high on that memory test, e.g., let's say 18 out of 20, whilst others scored low, e.g., let's say 10 out of 18. Sorry, out of 20. Okay. So that's the first part of the standard deviation, but then we got to look at what does the 2.1 mean, and then I'm going to write down whereas in the no music condition there was less variation in the scores, as most scores were clustered around the mean score. So what that means is most people scored similar on the memory test. So that means most people got 10 out of 20 in that condition, because if you look back at the mean, that was what the mean suggested. Now, because you've been asked to justify your answer for this, you'd have to write down justification is because the standard deviation in the music condition was greater than the standard deviation in the no music condition. And that's really it. So for 4 marks, you're looking at something like that. Obviously, you wouldn't write this stuff in. This is just stuff that you know. One other thing that I would like to say is remember that measures of central tendency include mean, mode, and median. Whoops, not median. And measures of dispersion includes the standard deviation, not like that, standard deviation, and the range, which we didn't cover today. So just remember that also, and we're going to look at maybe different kind of questions in the future, but this is the main thing I'd say for now that I can think of. And what I'll also say is just remember that the question could absolutely change. So it could be run a maze in the nighttime versus run a maze in daytime. So you really have to tailor your question to that, you know. So rather than saying music, no music all the way through here, that's what you'd have to be referring to. So just stay focused on the scenario, and then hopefully that question would go well.